Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to NJUCF's webinar, Completing Your Annual Accomplishment Report. My name is Terry Slack, and I'll be your host today. Before we get started, I'd just like to go over a few housekeeping items. You should see a control panel in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Click the arrow at the top if necessary to expand the panel fully. Lots of useful information is available via the control panel. For example, you can see who else is on the webinar, and a copy of Brian's presentation, the Annual Accomplishment Report form, and the CEU form, which we've uploaded for you. At least I think we did. At the bottom of your control panel is the questions chat box. While you can type questions into this box at any time during the webinar, we'll be taking questions at the end of Brian's presentation. Today's webinar is being recorded. You'll receive a follow-up email after the webinar is over with a link to the recorded webinar. A link to the recorded webinar will also be posted on our main NJUCF webpage, communityforestry.nj.gov. I'm going to now turn things over to our presenter, Brian McDonald.
Thank you, Terry. It's really nice to be speaking with everybody today. I appreciate everyone taking time out of their schedule to sit through our webinar. The purpose of the webinar here is to talk to you guys a little bit about the format of it, saving it, some updates and instructions, and I'm going to try to go over some sort of frequently asked questions that I've received over the past year. I know that there's probably two sections that seem to have the most amount of questions, so as we go through, I'll try to really highlight those. I'm sure everyone is familiar with our website. If you're not, this is the home page. The annual accomplishment report can be found on this page. So this is kind of just a zoomed in of that same view. That red arrow is pointing to the link for the annual accomplishment report for 2018. So if you have not yet gone to that website to look at it, then please do. I'm assuming that most of you have already been to that website. The link right above this red arrow was the link to register for this webinar. So it's more than likely that you've been to this website before. This is the very first page of the annual accomplishment report. It's almost exactly the same as last year. As I said, I made a couple updates just for some questions or errors that we had in there from last year. It is, so when you click on that link in the previous slide, this is what will come up. So we're going to go over right now how to save this report to your local computer, because this is one of the problems that I've encountered, is that on occasion folks have started to fill this form out on the website, and at that point you then can't save the changes you've made to your computer. So as soon as you click on that link, this is what will open up. If you go to the top left, there's that little disk, and that's one way to save it. Depending on how you're looking at it or what web browser you're looking at, you can also do file save or save as. So my suggestion is to save it to your local computer, whether that's your desktop or your hard drive, whatever the case is. Save it to your local computer so that you can make changes. So you can see in the file name there at the bottom where that red arrow is pointing to, I just named it AAR 2018. If it's convenient for you, you can name it your municipality or county's name, Trenton, AAR 2018, Mercer County, AAR 2018, whatever the case is, whatever's easiest for you to remember. So then you hit save and start editing from that copy that's saved to your local computer. Again, if you open it up on the web, you won't be able to save the changes you make as you go. So again, this is the first page of the annual accomplishment report. The two things I would like to point out on this page is that question number 5 is a drop-down box. So that little tiny arrow that is, let's see if I can do this. Little tiny arrow that's right here. You can click on that arrow, drop it down, and choose the year, the time period of your plan. So it's a 5-year period. If it started in 2018, it would expire in 2022. And you can sort of work back from that. So choose the time period of your plan. The other thing I would like to point out on this page is at the very bottom, there's the Tree City USA logo. Anytime you see that logo throughout this report, it means that that information could be copied into your Tree City USA application. You could not take this report and submit it as your Tree City USA application, but that information where that logo will pop up, and I'll point it out when we see one. You could take that information, such as the budget, let's say, and you could use that information directly for your Tree City USA application. So for anyone who's not familiar, just before we move on, Tree City USA is a nationwide recognition program. Most of the people that are already enrolled in our program, you probably already qualify. So if you're on the webinar today and this is your first time hearing about Tree City USA, I would suggest to please contact our office and ask more about it. So the next page here is just some general information about your program. Do you have a tree care professional and staff? Do you have an inventory? And have you submitted your Tree City USA application? So you can see here, there's that logo that I was talking about. So if you have, then that's great. And really all we're trying to do there is reinforce the fact that this program is out there and available to everybody. So this page, I've had a couple questions on. The first section, the first 15 to 18 are in regards to your municipal or county department that's responsible for tree care or tree management. So in some cases that might be a shade tree crew, that might be your DPW, that might be the highway department, parks department. It really depends on your local government, but who can we contact if we've got a question at your municipality or county with the local government side of things? And then the bottom is who's your volunteer group. So that could be a commission, a committee, a board, any other sort of volunteer group. So what's the name of that group? Who is sort of in charge? Who's the person we can contact? And then just some contact information. So as I said, those two things are one of the questions that I get a little bit, fairly often. So then do you have an ordinance? So again, this is another Tree City standard. This would be Tree City Standard 2. So if you have an ordinance, then that's one of the standards to apply for Tree City USA status. We're trying to collect some of this information so that we can better serve our constituents. We get a lot of questions about putting together ordinances. If we have sample ordinances, who's got an ordinance, such as this. And so we're trying to collect some information just to help you guys better when we get a call asking about ordinances. So the budget. This page is probably the section that I get the most amount of questions for. So there's two columns. There's the left-hand column which says CFMP budget. That column is what should be in your management plan. So in your plan, one of the sections is the budget. Now, ideally, that section of your plan should project out the budget for the 5 years that your plan covers. Now, that doesn't always happen for all 5 years. But so part of this is opening up your management plan, looking at that budget section, seeing what was in that section, and then comparing it to what actually happened in 2018. So then the right-hand column is reporting year actual, so 2018. This is what you actually spent in 2018 in regards to these different categories. So I've tried to break this down into 3 categories to make it fairly simple. So administration, UCF stewardship, and then education and outreach. Under administration, we've put municipal salaries, fringe benefits, indirect costs, volunteer contribution, and then other. All 3 categories have an other, and that's meant to be just sort of a catch-all just in case we've missed something in that category. So the municipal salary in that first line is maybe you have a shade tree crew and you've got 3 people. That would be their salaries. The fringe would be anything associated with those employees, benefits, those kinds of things. Then volunteer contribution could be time spent putting the plan together or doing any number of things, maybe a program. So one of the questions that I get a lot is, why do we want this information? We're not trying to track the actual budget to see how much, whatever city, make up the name of the city, McDonaldville is spending on their municipal salaries. The idea of this whole budget is to try to help our municipalities better understand where and how their money's being spent. So if, for example, municipal salaries, if you have municipal employees that are doing the majority of your tree trimming, that line, that municipal salary line for reporting your actual, could be that crew that's doing the pruning and removals. So you would understand that that's what that line is, and that's where that money's going. So then under the next section down where it says pruning and removals, you might not have anything there, but in the back of your head, you're saying, oh, well, I know we pruned X amount of trees this year and we removed Y amount. So where did that money go? Well, then, since it's being captured under municipal salaries, you can sort of understand that through those employees, you're having that work done, so you don't need to expend extra money for removals. Or maybe the shade tree crew can only do up to a certain size of removal. So then you know that anything under removals is a 16-inch DBH tree and above. So you know that you spent $10,000, let's say, on removals, and all of that was trees that were 16 inches and above. So then coming down to that next section, the UCF stewardship, these are sort of the management activities that could be happening, maybe not should be, but could be happening in your municipality or county, such as planting, pruning, removals, insect and disease management. And then we broke out emerald ash borer management into its own separate line because we wanted to really be specific about that one since it's such an important topic right now. We were kind of curious whether that is a large piece of the budget, whether the emerald ash borer management itself and the insect and disease management, kind of breaking those apart. So a lot of times people will call and ask me, Brian, we did $25,000 in tree removals. $10,000 worth was done by our employees. Another $15,000 was done by contract. Where do I put those values? I would say anything that's done by your municipal employees that time should go up in the first section under the municipal salary line. And then anything you contract out, I would put down below in the UCF stewardship. So if you bought 100 trees, I would put that value under the planting, even though they weren't actually planted, you just bought them. And then the DPW planted the trees. Well, you don't want to double count that. So I would put the tree purchase down below and the planting time by the employees up above. Other common questions are, where do I put my volunteer time? Well, I would say it really depends on what those volunteers are doing. The very last section is the education and outreach. So the first line in that section is training and education done by employees. So time or money spent by your employees to take a class. Maybe it's a pesticide class for their pesticide license or a tree planting class at Rutgers, something like that. I would put that down here in this last section. And then the next line is the training and education by volunteers. So anytime a volunteer takes a training class or, has an education program, I would put those in these lines. And the reason that we broke those out from the municipal salaries is just to help you guys understand when those monies are going towards these types of opportunities. So one of the most important things, I think, is to, if you let's say you got a stewardship grant from our office to plant 50 trees in your municipality. Well, it's really important to make sure you know how to plant those trees correctly. So maybe, the volunteer group and the DPW need to take a course, wherever it might be, on how to correctly plant a tree. So this is also a really good opportunity to capture that information, and it can be a really good tool to bring to your decision makers in your municipality or county and say, here's what we have spent and here's where our deficiencies are. If in fact we got a tree planting grant, well, last year we didn't spend any money on training and education. So we really need some backing from the municipality or the county to fund a training course on how to plant a tree, or to go to the Shade Tree Federation conference in October to get core training so that we better understand the NJUCF program and all of that good stuff. And then the very bottom of this page will start totaling the lines that are above. And the point there was to try to make it a little bit easier for you guys to carry this over to your Tree City USA application. So each of those 4 lines at the very bottom correlate to this section here is where I'm talking about. So those 4 lines correlate directly to the Tree City USA application. So those topics will start adding when you put up above any sort of budget items, and then you can carry those over to your application. Now, one of the other questions I get is whether there needs to be something in every single line for both columns. And the answer is no. Every municipality in New Jersey, we have 565 municipalities, and every single one of them is different. Some don't do stump removal, some don't do leaf collection, some don't prune. So in your case, you may not have something to put in every single line, and that's okay. But hopefully, through this sort of standardized form, it will, if nothing else, start a conversation about some of these topics, where we could get money for tree planting, or if in your management plan budget, you had $10,000 for planting, but you didn't get to use it this year for whatever reason. Well, maybe that's a great opportunity to apply for a grant from our office for tree planting. So the next section is all about Arbor Day. The very first question is whether you celebrated Arbor Day or not. And again, there's that Tree City USA logo at the top. So if you did celebrate Arbor Day, then that's one of the most important standards for Tree City USA. And hopefully by working through this AAR, it will help you realize, maybe if you didn't already realize, that you are eligible for the Tree City USA certification. So your date of Arbor Day celebration and type of Arbor Day celebration. And it says there, please upload any photos directly to the Arbor Day Foundation. So they need proof that you held an Arbor Day, and that's one of the ways that you can show that is through a photo. And you're more than welcome to attach photos to this report. If you scan it and email it to me, you can just attach those photos or any other supporting documentation along with that email. You could scan them along with the report or just attach them as separate files. So this page is all about training and education, both whether your needs were adequately met. So if there was something that you were really interested in taking but couldn't find, we work really closely with the Rutgers Urban Forestry program. They help us track and credit all of our CEUs. So if there's a topic or a type of class that you would like to see that you haven't been able to find or don't think is available, we can try to all work together and maybe make something like that happen. I don't know off the top of my head what an example would be, but let's say tree planting. There's plenty of tree planting courses out there, but let's just use that as an example, that maybe you really want a tree planting course and you can't find one. Well, maybe we can help make that happen. And then the last question on this page is something that you've done in your municipality to involve the public education and outreach program locally. We're really interested in what you guys are doing. If we can maybe glean some ideas off of that or share something on our Facebook page about a local program that's really exciting or something happened, that would be great. People are always asking us, what are other towns doing to get news out there or educate their homeowners. And if you guys don't tell us, then we don't know. Unfortunately, we can't visit every municipality all the time. So this is a really great opportunity for us to sort of see what you guys are doing and maybe take some cool programs and share them with everybody else. So this is the second to last page. Again, I get quite a few questions about this, sort of what's supposed to go on these lines, and one of the funny conversations I've had over the last year with people about this page is people almost being worried that it's getting graded. And I always say that this is not, this isn't a test. It's not meant to say, oh, that didn't happen, boo-hoo, that's no good. But it's meant to give you guys an opportunity to, one, get your community forestry management plan off the shelf and look at it and look through it and really see what you laid out, what was supposed to happen in 2018, and whether you accomplished that or not. And we all understand that the best planning doesn't always work out. So something that you had planned for 2018 for whatever reason maybe didn't happen. And there's nothing wrong with that. These kinds of things happen. Let's say in your management plan 2018 you wanted to finish your inventory, but some committee members weren't available, and so you just didn't have the manpower to do it or the funding to do it. So maybe that's a good opportunity to say, all right, well, in 2019 we're going to apply for a stewardship grant to do that inventory, and that's how we're going to make it happen. Since we couldn't in 2018, maybe it will happen in 2019. So I try to stress to everybody to say that this isn't meant to be it's not a quiz. You're not getting graded on this. It's really meant to help you open up that management plan, see what your goals and objectives are, and to help you understand better why some of these things happened or didn't happen. Maybe you've in 2018 you finished all of your objectives and you've already started on 2019's objectives. Well, maybe that means you can add a few things that you hadn't planned on. You could start that inventory that you weren't going to start till 2020 because you already did the outreach program that was your big objective for 2018. And then finally on this page, we're trying to collect a little bit of information about wood utilization. So any sorts of wood products from urban wood that you are making or using in your municipality or county. So that's kind of just a short list of what we think are possibilities for wood products. It's obviously not everything, but we get a lot of questions, and especially with emerald ash borer and the removal of ash trees in our municipalities. What can we do with all of this wood? So some municipalities have they've sort of stockpiled the logs, and when they get to a critical mass, they've either contracted a portable sawmill or maybe made an arrangement where the municipality keeps half and the sawmill owner keeps half or something like that. And they've made lumber so that they can make picnic tables or park signs or park benches, things like that. So we're really interested in just in general, not only related to emerald ash borer and ash trees, but as a whole, what kinds of products are our municipalities making, or maybe nothing, and trying to get that information out there as well, so that we know if maybe one town is doing something, maybe the surrounding towns could sort of piggyback off that, and we can get some cooperation and some things going. So if one town is making lumber out of something, and the neighboring town has knows that they're going to be removing a large quantity of ash trees or oak trees or something that might be of some value, then they can partner up and get sort of a higher, better use than maybe just wood chips. So, again, we're just trying to collect a little bit of information so that we can help our municipalities do kind of some cool things. And the last page of the report, we're really looking for a highlight, maybe something that you did this year that you are really proud of, that you thought was really cool, or different, or something you just want to show off. Terry, who you heard from this morning, she does our Facebook page, and she's always looking for neat ideas from people to post on Facebook. So let's say maybe your town did a really cool outreach program to the schools or to the homeowners or at Arbor Day, then we'd really like to hear about that so we can share it with the rest of the municipalities. We can get it on our Facebook page or put it out through our email blast, so that we can share highlights or cool programs with everybody else. And again, if you have any pictures that you'd like to share, you can either scan them with this report or just send them to me as a separate attachment. And then the very last box there is just any comments or suggestions for us. We're always looking to improve, so anything that we can do to better serve our communities, we're looking for suggestions, some creative criticism maybe. So if you've got any tips or suggestions, we would love to hear them. And then the very last big red arrow there is the signature page, or the signature line. by the mayor or the freeholder from the county. So this is a really great opportunity to get this information in front of your elected officials. So, we all know that they're the decision makers and they can make things happen. So this is a great opportunity to get this report in front of those people so that they can see all the good work you've done, and maybe ask for a half an hour meeting with the mayor or the town council so that you can sit down and go over this report with them and have them sign it and say, look at all this great work we've done, and maybe ask for some more funding. Obviously we all know that budgets are tight and money's hard to come by, but if you can show them this report and all the good work that all of our municipalities are doing, then maybe we can, make a push for that little bit of extra funding to plant some trees. So that is the report. My contact info is on the very bottom page of that report, but I've put it up here also just in case you need it. Please do not hesitate to call me or email me with any questions or concerns. I'm here to help. Everybody on our team is here to help. We are readily available via email or phone, so please do not hesitate to reach out to us anytime to ask questions. So on that note of questions, I'm going to ask Terry to maybe ask a couple that we can go over now.
Brian, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Terry.
Okay, good. I've managed to unmute myself. That's always good. Did you want to do the CEU form before we take questions in case there are people who have to hop off early?
I can do that.
Why don't we do that, and then we'll do some questions.
So here is the AAR webinar, and I just realized that I didn't change the date in the title, but it's got the right date below. So it says 2017 AAR webinar. My apologies for that. It should say 2018 webinar, but it's got the right date, so I'll know that it's the right one. So you can either take a screenshot of this that's up on your screen right now. It's also included in the handout section. It's a PDF that says AAR Webinar CEU Certificate. So if you could print that out, fill in the required information, sign it, and then you can either scan it and email it to me. And again, my email is at the bottom there. It's brian.mcdonald@dep.nj.gov. Or you can send it through the traditional mail if you need, and the address is there in the second line, and you can put it to my attention. So Terry, if there's some questions,
We do have questions, Brian.
Great.
Let's start with the last page where you need the signature of the mayor or the county freeholder. So is the idea on the AAR that once you filled this out online, you print it out and then hand it to the freeholder to sign? There's a question regarding how do you get a signature on an electronic copy?
Sure. So the idea would be that you would either print it and physically give it to that individual to sign, or you could always fill it out and send the electronic copy to them to sign and send to us. Preferably a hard, an actual signature as opposed to an electronic signature. So however that works for you, whether it's, you printing it out and putting on that person's desk or sending it to them for them to print out and sign. Yeah, whichever one of those works, I suppose.
Okay. Brian, some of the answers to the questions on the annual accomplishment report, they don't really change much from year to year. For example, the information about ordinances. So one of our attendees wants to know if it's possible to have some of the responses pre-populated. Maybe there's a way you can do that next year. I don't know.
I'm not sure that we could do that on our end, only because it's one form for everyone. So it would be a little difficult to save those responses. It's certainly possible that the on the other end you could have those answers saved, but I think it would be difficult on our end to try to do that. But we can certainly see.
Something we can at least look into and consider going
Exactly.
forward. Okay. One of our attendees says that their municipal budget isn't broken down in the same manner as we have it laid out in the AAR, and this person was only able to obtain the total for 3 employees. So I guess they're wondering how to handle it if their budget doesn't look anything like our budget sheet. Is that something you would like them to call you about, maybe? I don't know.
So I guess I can answer that in general, and if there are, more specific questions, I would certainly say please just give me a call. I have run into that before, and my advice, I guess, is to just sort of make it work as best as possible. I understand that not every budget looks like our budget. We sort of tried to make it as general as possible, and worked off of a sample budget from the Tree City USA, from the Arbor Day Foundation. If you don't have all of the information or can't get all of the information, I would certainly say just put in the information you have or that you have access to or have gotten. I can understand that sometimes it might be difficult to get a bunch of pieces of information from different offices, but on the flip side of that, maybe it's a good opportunity to sit down with those groups and talk about what's going on in your municipality, to say, obviously in a good manner, but to say, hey, whatever the case is, DPW, what are these 3 salaries and how can we work with them? How can we work with those people to get the most out of our program? Sometimes I think that sitting down with somebody over a cup of coffee and just having a discussion can really go a long way. So maybe, if that information isn't readily available, maybe trying to bridge that gap could make it happen, or at least maybe open your eyes or help open their eyes about what we're trying to do, and not in a negative way saying, oh, why do you need this information? Maybe just putting a little bit of extra effort to sit down with somebody and say, this is what we're trying to do, and we all have the same goals, safety in our community, having trees planted, having beautiful trees, and maybe try to work to an end goal together. So hopefully that answered the question, but if not, please, give me a call or email, and we can try to figure out the specifics of the question.
Okay. Our next question is, how is the volunteer hourly rate determined?
There is a website, which is independentsector.org, which I wonder if I can try to do this. I don't think that's going to work. Where you can log on to their website and it will give you an hourly rate for the United States as a whole, and then there is a map, and you can click on New Jersey and get New Jersey's hourly rate, which is higher than the national average. So I always recommend people to get New Jersey's and use New Jersey's hourly rate, and that's just a general volunteer rate that's that they come up with.
Okay. Our next question is, if this is a county that's applying, can the county executive sign the report?
Yes, that would be fine if the county executive signs the annual accomplishment report.
Okay. How would you handle salary cost if items are done by the Department of Public Works? I don't have anything more specific to that. Perhaps maybe the person who sent that could clarify for us.
I guess from previous conversations, let's say the Department of Public Works does the tree planting and does the leaf collection and does the trimming and those kinds of things. I would recommend putting it in the top section, the administration for municipal salaries, as opposed to trying to break up that one person's time into those different categories. But again, if in your particular case, if it makes more sense to you to break up that time into those different categories, that's perfectly fine. It's sort of whatever makes more sense to you, and works best for your records.
Okay. Our next question, is the report printable? Sorry, Brian, didn't mean to catch you drinking water.
I've had a cold the past couple of days, so I feel like my throat's a little dry. So the report certainly is printable. If you go through the steps that I mentioned at the very beginning, as far as saving and editing, you should be able to save your edits as you fill in the form and then print the form with those edits saved to the form, if that makes sense.
Okay, this is a little bit long, so I'll repeat it if need be. This attendee wants, just to be clear, in administration area, salaries would be all labor costs associated with any cost of planting, removals, pruning, and paid commission staff. And then in stewardship, that would include cost of buying trees. And what about grant monies? Would that be in other? So there's actually like 3 parts. I hope I can repeat it if you need.
So I would say in the top part, the administration would be any time spent by employees working on anything related to community forestry in the municipality. So whether that's creating maps for an inventory or physically planting trees, I would say that any of that would go in the top part under administration. Then the tree planting or any contract work done, I would put in the second part. And the grants, I would say the grants could go in other, or I suppose would also be appropriate in, let's say, tree planting. Let's say that your municipality received a stewardship grant from our office to plant trees. I think you could probably put that in the tree planting as well, or the other, I guess, whichever makes more sense.
Okay, Brian, we do have someone who'd like you to repeat the website for the volunteer hourly rate, but one of our attendees on the webinar says that they believe the value is $28.65 per hour. But if I don't know, I don't have confirmation. If you could just, again, tell me what the website is so I can put that down. You thought it was?
The website is independent sector.
All one word?
All one word.
Independentsector.org, right?
.org.
.org. Okay.
And I'm not sure what the current rate is, but
Okay. Let's see. We have many more. This particular municipality does not track how much time was spent on each task, so they want to know, can we lump, in quotation marks, the salary cost?
yeah, absolutely. The salary section could just be one lump sum of, it could be whatever the case is. If it's 2 people that do various things, I would say just lump them all together in that box, and that's fine.
Okay. All right. We have another webinar attendee who also has a number for the hourly rate for New Jersey. So I think really the best thing is to go to that website and just check out what the number currently is. Our next question is, in their form, there is a dollar amount of 531 in the template in the subtotal. How can they clear that? I don't know why it's got a number pre-populated. And then they have a question, how can they include the cost for the delivery of trees? I would think, they should just download another copy of the form.
That's possible. The subtotal line should be totaling what's above it in that section, so it's possible that maybe there's an error if there's not something in those lines. Maybe they just need to double check, or as you said, Terry, maybe it just needs to be downloaded again. I can double check the form, but I have not heard that issue before, so I'll double check. But yeah, maybe just making sure there's nothing in those lines above it, or downloading the form again. And I agree with what you said, Terry, that the independentsector.org is the best place to find that hourly rate.
Okay. Next question is, what if we don't have a budget number in our plan? Should we use 0?
So every plan should have something in the budget. As I said, it's certainly possible that for some reason your plan does not have an actual budget for 2018, which is okay. You could leave that column blank, but maybe this is a really good opportunity to think about that for the next planning period. That making that section of the plan more robust and having a general idea of what you would like to see in those 5 years of that plan, I think would really help the plan as a document to have a better idea of what your budget will be over those 5 years. And to follow up on the question from before, Terry, that I didn't answer, is that the funds for ordering trees could probably go in the planting section in the stewardship area as well.
Thanks. I just want to let our listeners know that we have gotten a couple of questions on the webinar that are not really specific to this webinar. And for those questions, we will get back to the individual folks with answers to them. I think at this point, Brian, we don't have any more questions on the board. We can either wait a couple of minutes or, close things down.
I think we're good, Terry. If anybody has any follow-up questions, or as you start to fill out these forms, if you have any questions that we didn't answer or that come to mind, please, as I said, don't hesitate to give me a call or email, or anybody else with Urban and Community Forestry. Oh, Terry says we have one more question.
Yes, we just had a question come in. This commenter says, with over 300 stumps, should this be placed on the form? I'm not
I guess
certain.
if you have costs associated with the removal of those stumps, then I would certainly put that budget item in the stump removal line. If they are stumps that aren't being removed and therefore there's not a cost associated with them, then I'm not sure that there would be a place in this budget to put that. So if that's it, Terry, I would just like to say thank you to everybody for attending, and thank you, Terry, for being our host today.
Yeah, and I want to thank everybody, like Brian said, for being on the webinar. We appreciate you listening in today. And on behalf of Brian and myself, I just want to wish you all a great rest of your day. I'm ending the webinar. Ooh, I hope that doesn't mean I can't get these questions.